An Introduction to the Science of Hadith by Ibn Salah al-Shahrazuri, the most influential work in the Science of Hadith. Category 23. The characteristic of those whose transmission is accepted and those whose transmission is rejected, and the allied subjects of impugning and discrediting and certifying and accrediting. معرفة صفات من تقبل روايته ومن ترد روايته وما يتعلق بذلك من قدح والجرح والتوثيق والتعديل. The generality of the experts in hadith and law unanimously agree on stipulating that the person whose transmission may be adduced as a proof be upright and accurate in what he relates. Specifically, he must be a Muslim, adult, of sound mind, free of tendencies towards impiety and defects of character, alert, careful, retentive if he transmits from memory, and accurate in handling text if he transmits from it. If he paraphrases his hadith in transmission, it is further stipulated that he be aware of any of the sense of a text that can be altered. God knows best. We will clarify this general statement by addressing specific issues. Number 1. The integrity of a transmitter is sometimes established by an explicit endorsement of his integrity by those who accredit him, and sometimes by general acknowledgement. For those whose integrity is well known to the transmitters of hadith and other scholars like them, and who are widely praised for reliability and honesty, there is no need for evidence testifying to their reliability in the form of an explicit declaration. This is held to be the correct in the doctrine of Shafi'i, and is relied upon in the field of legal theory, usul al-fiqh. The expert Abu Bakr al-Khatib is one of the scholars of hadith who stated this. He cited as examples of this exalted status Malik, Shu'bah, the two Sufyans, that's Thawri and Uyayna, Awza'i, al-Layth, Ibn al-Mubarak, Waqi', Ahmed ibn Hanbal, Yahya bin Ma'in, Ali ibn al-Madini, and those who were like them in terms of renown and righteousness. The integrity of these scholars and those like them is not questioned. Those whose affair is hidden from researchers are the only ones whose reliability may be questioned. The expert Ibn Abdul Barr made a sweeping declaration on this point. Every bearer of hadith known to be attentive in this matter is considered to be upright, and his integrity is assumed indefinitely until a reason for his discreditation comes to light. Because the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The upright people of each succeeding generation will bear this knowledge." There is some unsatisfactory vagueness in what Ibn Abdul Barr said. God knows best. Number 2. A transmitter comes to be recognized as accurate by the comparison of his transmissions with the transmissions of reliable scholars, known for precision and exactitude. If we find that his transmissions are in agreement, even if only from the standpoint of sense, with their transmissions, or what they are largely in agreement and disagreement is rare, then we know that this is accurate and trustworthy. If we find that he often contradicts them, we discover his imprecision, and we do not adduce his hadith as proofs. God knows best. Number 3. According to the sound and well-known doctrine, accreditation may be accepted without any statement of a reason for it, because the reasons for accrediting a transmitter are numerous and difficult to state. To demand the reasons would require the accreditor to say, he did not do X, he did not commit Z, and he did do Z. He did not do X, he did not commit Y, and he did do Z, and enumerate everything the commission or omission of which is impious, and that would be very burdensome. Discrediting may not be accepted without a clear explanation of the reason, because people disagree over what discredits and what does not. Sometimes a critic discredits someone on the basis of a matter that he believes to be discredit, but which he does not do so in reality. He must explain his reason in order that it be seen whether it is discrediting or not. This is clearly established in the fields of positive law and legal theory. The expert Khatib said that it is the doctrine of the authorities of the experts and critics of hadith like Bukhari and Muslim and others. For that reason, Bukhari adduced as proofs the hadiths of a number of transmitters whom others had previously discredited, like Ikramah, the slave of Ibn Abbas, God be pleased with him, Ismail ibn Abi Umays, Asim ibn Ali, Amr ibn Marzuq, and others. Muslim cited as proofs the hadith of Suhayb ibn Sa'id and a number of others who are widely impugned. Abu Dawud as-Sijistani did the same. This indicates that they held the doctrine that discrediting is not established unless the reason for it is explained. The views of the critics of hadith transmitters regarding discrediting are obscure and contradictory. Al-Khatib composed a chapter containing some stories about those who were asked to explain why they discredited someone and gave invalid reasons for it. In one, Shu'bah was asked, "Why did you forsake the hadith of X?" He said, "I saw him galloping on an old nag, so I rejected his hadith." In another narration, Muslim ibn Ibrahim was asked about the hadith of Salih al-Murri. He said, "What can be done with Salih?" One day they mentioned his name to Hamad ibn Salama, and Hamad blew his nose. God knows best. What if someone says, for discrediting transmitters and rejecting their hadith, people rely on the books which the authorities in hadith wrote on impugning or on personality criticism in general, and rarely do these authorities venture to explain their reasons in them. Rather, they confine themselves merely to saying, X is weak, Y is nothing, and the like, or this is a weak hadith, this is not well established hadith, and the like. So stipulating that the reason must be explained leads to the negation of the value of their opinions and to the invalidation of the discrediting in most cases. The answer to this is that even if we do not rely on these kinds of declarations to assert discreditation and pass judgments, do we rely upon them to the extent that we refrain from accepting the hadith of those whom they say something like that about, on the basis that these declarations have sown in our minds doubts about the transmitters of the kinds which necessitate hesitation? If the doubts of the authorities about a transmitter are removed by an investigation of his state, which necessitates that we must trust his integrity, we accept his hadith without hesitation. This is the case of those whom the authors of the two Sahihs and others cite, who are touched by this kind of discreditation from other critics. So understand, for that is a good counter-argument. God knows best. 4. There are conflicting opinions over the question of whether a judgment of the personality criticism is established as valid by the statement of a single critic, or whether two are necessary. Some maintain that 2 is the minimum number to establish such a criticism, as is the case with the discreditation and accreditation of testimony in court. Some hold the opinion, and it is the correct view which Abu Bakr al-Khatib and others have adopted, that is, it may be established by a single critic, because no particular number of transmitters is stipulated for the acceptance of a report. None is stipulated for the accrediting or discrediting of a transmitter, contrary to the case of testimony in court. And God knows best. Stay tuned.